Picture someone who does everything right. They walk 10,000 steps every day. They skip dessert, drink water instead of soda, pack their meals, and go to bed on time. And every single morning they check the mirror and the belly fat has not moved, not an inch. Most people in this situation assume they need to work harder. More cardio, stricter diet, fewer calories. But the problem is almost never the effort. It is the timing. There is a 30-minute window right after you wake up where your body's fat-burning environment is more favorable than at any other point in the entire day. If you walk during this window, you force your body to use stored belly fat as its primary fuel source. But if you make one specific mistake before you leave the house, a mistake that 90% of people make without realizing it, you close that window instantly. And your body spends the rest of the day burning the wrong fuel while your belly fat stays exactly where it is. Today, we are going completely under the hood. We are going to look at exactly what happens inside your body when you walk in a fasted state. The precise biological mechanism that forces visceral fat to become fuel. The exact amount of time you need to walk to actually trigger this effect. And the single morning habit that undoes the entire process before it can begin. To understand why fasted walking works so specifically on belly fat, you first need to understand why belly fat is so uniquely resistant to conventional exercise. Belly fat is not the same as the fat on your arms or your thighs. It is not a passive storage unit sitting quietly under your skin. Visceral fat, the fat packed around your organs, is metabolically active tissue. It responds directly and rapidly to your hormonal environment, and the hormone that governs it most powerfully is insulin. And here is why belly fat specifically is so resistant compared to fat everywhere else. Visceral fat has a higher concentration of alpha receptors than subcutaneous fat. Alpha receptors are essentially the lock on the fat cell door. When insulin triggers these receptors, the door stays firmly shut and fat cannot be released. Subcutaneous fat in your arms, face, and legs has more beta receptors which respond more readily to fat release signals. This is the biological reason why your face thins out while your belly stays untouched. Your belly fat is more heavily locked. When insulin is elevated, fat cells receive a clear biological instruction to stay closed. They will not release stored energy into the bloodstream regardless of how much you exercise. This is why eating before a morning walk is metabolically counterproductive for fat loss. The moment you eat, insulin rises to manage the incoming energy. Your body burns the breakfast, your heart gets a workout, your joints get some movement, but the fat stored around your organs is untouched. The fat-burning door is closed. But when you wake up after 8, 10, or 12 hours without food, something different is happening inside you. Insulin is at its lowest point of the entire day. A hormone called glucagon, insulin's opposite on the metabolic seesaw, is elevated. Glucagon's job is mobilization, releasing stored energy rather than locking it away. The easily accessible fuel in your bloodstream and liver is running extremely low. If you step outside and walk at this exact moment, your body searches for energy, finds the quick supply depleted, and is forced to switch to the heavy reserve. It reaches into stored belly fat and converts it directly into fuel for your muscles. This is not a theory. A clinical study published in the British Journal of Nutrition tested this exact mechanism precisely. Researchers gathered a group of active adults and had both groups perform the identical morning cardiovascular workout. Same pace, same duration, same moderate intensity. The only difference was timing. Group A ate a normal breakfast before exercising. Group B exercised on a completely empty stomach, consuming nothing but water. The results were striking. The fasted group burned up to 20% more stored body fat during the session compared to the group that ate breakfast first. Not 20% more total calories, 20% more fat specifically. Same walk, same effort, same person essentially, just different timing. The researchers observed that because insulin was at its absolute lowest during that fasted morning window, the biological doors to the fat cells were left completely open for the entire duration of the walk. But simply being fasted is not enough on its own. You need movement to initiate the fuel switch fully. Here is the mechanism that most explanations miss entirely. Your muscle cells normally need insulin to open their doors and absorb glucose. Insulin acts like a key that unlocks glucose entry into the cell. But during muscle contraction, something different happens. A transporter protein called GLUT4 migrates to the surface of the muscle cell independently, without needing insulin to trigger it. When you walk, your muscles contract rhythmically and continuously. GLUT4 transporters emerge at the cell surface and begin pulling glucose directly out of your bloodstream. No insulin required. As blood glucose drops from this muscular demand, your liver has to release its stored glycogen to compensate and keep blood sugar stable. You are actively draining the liver's fuel tank without triggering any insulin response. And here is where it becomes specifically relevant to belly fat. As the liver empties its glycogen reserves, insulin has no reason to stay elevated. It drops further. Glucagon rises further. Visceral fat, which is highly metabolically active and has a rich blood supply, becomes increasingly accessible. It starts releasing stored fatty acids into the bloodstream to fuel the walking muscles. This is why the first 10 to 15 minutes of a fasted walk feels slightly harder than usual. Your body is still transitioning fuel sources, still draining that glycogen buffer. Once you cross the 15-minute mark, your body has fully committed to fat as its primary fuel. The rhythm settles. This is the zone you want to sustain for the next 20 to 30 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes of total fasted walking is where the meaningful cumulative fat burning effect lives. 10 minutes is better than nothing, but it is not enough time to fully drain the buffer and spend significant time in deep fat oxidation mode. And there is something specific about visceral fat worth understanding here. Visceral fat, the fat around your organs, has a higher metabolic activity rate than subcutaneous fat under your skin. It turns over faster, it responds to hormonal signals more rapidly, and when the conditions are right, it releases energy more readily than fat tissue elsewhere. This is the uncomfortable truth that makes it so dangerous when insulin is chronically elevated. It accumulates aggressively, but it is also the biological reality that makes the fasted morning window so specifically effective against it. When insulin drops and glucagon rises, visceral fat is among the first tissues to respond, not the last. The same metabolic activity that makes it dangerous when conditions favor storage makes it vulnerable when conditions favor release. Now, there is a second dimension to fasted walking that most people never connect to belly fat. Cortisol. We live in a chronically stressed world. Most adults wake up, immediately check their phone, read the news, scroll through social media. Before their feet have hit the floor, their nervous system is already in mild alert mode. Here is why this specifically matters for belly fat. Cortisol receptors are roughly 3 times more concentrated in visceral fat than in fat tissue anywhere else in the body. When cortisol stays chronically elevated, visceral fat receives a disproportionately strong signal to hold its position, to not release, to protect the organs at all costs, which is what your body evolved to do under perceived threat. Most people are unknowingly locking their belly fat in place before they even think about exercise. When you walk in the morning, ideally outside at a moderate, sustainable pace, rhythmic movement in a natural environment actively lowers circulating cortisol. The stress pressure valve releases. And because cortisol drops while insulin is already low and glucagon is elevated, you are simultaneously addressing 3 of the primary mechanisms that keep belly fat locked in place. You are not doing one good thing. You are doing 3 good things with the same 30 minutes. This is why fasted morning walking is uniquely effective in a way that an afternoon gym session, no matter how intense, cannot fully replicate. The afternoon gym session may burn more calories, but it does not create the specific hormonal confluence of low insulin, high glucagon, and falling cortisol that makes visceral fat specifically accessible. That confluence only exists in the fasted morning window. So, here is the exact protocol. Wake up and drink a large glass of plain water before anything else. After a full night without fluids, your body is mildly dehydrated. A dehydrated body cannot metabolize fat efficiently. Water is the catalyst that allows the entire fat-burning process to run smoothly. If you enjoy coffee, A cup of plain black coffee before your walk provides an additional advantage. Caffeine is a mild stimulant that increases fatty acid mobilization, encouraging your body to release more stored fat into the bloodstream to be burned. Just keep it completely black. Plain unsweetened green tea works equally well, then walk. Aim for 30 to 45 minutes at a brisk but conversational pace. Think of it this way. Imagine you are running slightly late for something important. You are moving purposefully. Your breathing is slightly elevated. Your heart rate is up. But you could still hold a short conversation without gasping. This is your aerobic fat burning zone. Do not push harder than this. When you are fasted and you push into high-intensity exercise, your body interprets the sudden lack of quick energy as a panic situation. Cortisol spikes sharply. Stress hormones rise. The fat-burning advantage you created by fasting gets partially undermined by the stress response you triggered. Moderate is better than intense when you are walking fasted. Now let's talk about the single most common mistake that destroys this entire process, and the reason most people do not realize they are making it. Many people understand the concept of walking before breakfast, but they think a small amount of food before they leave will not matter. A splash of sweetened creamer in their coffee. A single bite of a banana because it is just a fruit. A small handful of crackers because it feels like almost nothing. A sip of a protein shake because protein is healthy. From a metabolic standpoint, any of these completely changes the equation. The moment any carbohydrate or significant caloric input hits your digestive system, your pancreas releases insulin. And the moment insulin enters your bloodstream, the fat cell doors close. Immediately. Your body stops burning stored belly fat and switches back to processing whatever you just consumed. There are no innocent morning bites if your goal is fasted fat burning. 0-calorie beverages only before your walk. Plain water, black coffee, or plain green tea. Absolutely nothing else. When you return from your walk, how you break the fast matters too. Build your first meal around protein. Eggs, Greek yogurt, lean chicken, cottage cheese. Protein first, before any carbohydrates. This keeps insulin stable for longer after the walk, extending the fat-burning environment rather than slamming it shut the moment you start eating. Here is the honest perspective on timelines. One fasted walk will not flatten your stomach by that afternoon. That is not how this works. What one fasted walk does is begin a process of metabolic adaptation that compounds daily. With each consecutive morning, your body becomes slightly more efficient at accessing fat as fuel. Your fat oxidation capacity improves week by week. Your daily baseline insulin trends lower because you are consistently creating a daily period where it has no reason to stay elevated. Your cortisol regulation improves because you are giving your nervous system a daily decompression window. Think about what this means over 30 days. 30 mornings of creating the optimal fat-burning hormonal environment before the rest of the day begins. 30 mornings of training your metabolism to reach for fat instead of sugar. 30 mornings of actively lowering the cortisol that was keeping visceral fat locked in place. The cumulative effect of this is not linear. Each morning builds on the last. Your body gradually becomes a more efficient fat-burning system at rest, not just during the walk itself. Over weeks, your clothes start fitting differently. The midsection softens. The stomach begins to shrink. Your energy levels through the afternoon stabilize because your body is becoming significantly better at managing its own blood sugar independently of constant food input. None of this requires a gym membership, expensive equipment, or extreme dietary restriction. You need a pair of comfortable shoes, a glass of water, and the decision to step outside before breakfast. That is the entire investment. What you get in return is a daily window where your biology is working with you instead of against you, where the stubborn visceral fat that survives everything else finally has nowhere to hide. If this changed how you think about your morning routine, go ahead and hit that like button. And tell me in the comments what time you normally wake up and whether you are going to try the fasted walk tomorrow morning. Because the window opens every single day. The only question is whether you step through it before you close it.